Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Parks and Community Service Commission regular meeting of August 8th. And if we can please rise, and if Commissioner Glab would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we can have the roll call, please.
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present except for Commissioner Garcia Arcos, Commissioner Brown, and Commissioner Wall.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. So we do have some people in the audience. If anybody here would like to speak. Come on up.
Ready?
Ready.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lynn Redmond. I'm Christian Redmond's father, and for those who don't know what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about Fairview Park again. You can go back to the last Park Commission meeting and several of the last City Council meetings. I was also at this Fairview Park Steering Committee meeting last, which evidently that's not recorded, but for what it's worth, the same thing I'm talking about is the black mustard problem at the park. And we've been, Christian's two projects that he's been maintaining for the last 10 years have been primarily been trying to overrun by black mustard. But over the years, we've been able to mitigate it and contain it and keep it from overrunning the two projects, the Coast Sage Scrub at the top of the bluff and the Coast Live Oak Tree project down around the riparian area. But the schedule for the park, which was announced and presented at the steering committee meeting, is such that evidently there'll be nothing much done because it's not approved yet in the park on rejuvenating the sage scrub areas and doing any other plantings and things. And we're not allowed to be in the park anymore for a variety of reasons, which I still don't really understand, but supposedly we don't know what we're doing. We're not trained. And even though we were trained by Barry Nairhouse from ICRE and the original plantings, and he's been overseeing the work we've done over the years, but now we're not allowed to do that anymore. So whatever's done in the park to mitigate the black mustard, in the meantime, when the plan is finally implemented and work is started on rehabilitating the sage scrub areas and all the other areas that are delineated on the plan that was presented at the steering committee, the mustard will be growing. The season starts basically in late October through July. By the end of the July, if you haven't got rid of the mustard by then, it's grown up 10 feet tall, gone to seed and dried and shattering, and the wind will be carrying it throughout the park. So here again, much effort must be directed toward any contracts or any renovation projects or any new planning projects. Number one, to get rid of the mustard before the planning, and then to maintain those projects well into several years after the planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Then I'm going to ask, do we have anybody online?
There are no members online at this time. I do want to reflect that correspondence was received today, and it's available on our city website.
Correct. Thank you. It's from Jennifer Tanaka regarding Harper Park, and we all have that. So thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask the commissioners if you have comments or suggestions, and I'll start with Commissioner Glab.
Oh, real quick, I came to the city council meeting Tuesday and saw the pony baseball team recognized. That was pretty exciting to see all those kids get a little recognition for all their hard work. And I invited the city council out to the football games at Costa Mesa High School, so I want to extend that invitation to you as well. If you'd like to attend, just see me. We'll give you VIP treatment. All right.
I love it. Thank you.
Yep.
And then if we can do, on my left, I'll do the far end, Commissioner Wright. Oh, there it goes.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Short comments from me. I was sad to miss the last meeting, but the Shalimar Park and the Ketchum Liable community feedback was awesome and really great to look at. I loved how tactical it was and that it was welcoming for all ages, put stickers on things to vote, and I'm really excited to see those projects come to life. I hope you guys are having a smooth and busy summer. I know this is one of our craziest periods of the year, and I'm looking forward to getting into the Open Spaces Master Plan tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
And you might have to turn my mic off for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Ledger, you got your mic on?
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing at this time, thank you.
You have nothing, okay. So I just have a couple comments. First of all, I was able to go to 2 concerts in the park. The staff does an amazing job. But on this side, I do know that it continues to be in a sensitive park. So I did, we had a tour of Orange Coast College, has some new facilities that when I talked to the president would be offered, because it's a community college, to see whether or not we can have activities and possibly maybe move concerts in the park over to a different area. I know we were going to do where the Raiders are now. We were all thinking that we could go over there. So, but I just want to commend the team that puts those on. I can't believe every year it grows, and I can't believe it grows and it keeps growing, and the food trucks, and it's just a great community event. The other thing is, I had a member of the community reach out. She had seen an activity called Kids Love Trucks, and so I forwarded on to the director. We'll be looking onto that. It seems like a really fun activity for young kids. My young kids love trucks and garbage trucks and all kinds of things. So it seems like it might be a nice add-on. And that's all I have right now. So at this time, I'm going to move to the consent calendar, where the minutes are for both the May and the June. So unless I have anybody that wants to pull out the minutes, if I can I'll do a motion in a second, then I'll ask for any public comments. So if I have a motion, if you can put a motion, who has a motion, go on your panel and make a motion. And a second. Is it working?
So there'll have to be individual.
We have to
motions?
call
Yeah.
because there's people absent. Okay, so if I can have some, by voice, make a motion, who would like to make a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Ledger, who has a second?
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Clapp. Do we have any public comments either in the chamber or remote? Okay. Okay, then we'll call for a vote.
Okay, 1 second. You may vote on your dais. Motion carries 4-0 to approve the minutes.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Director Gruner's report, and I need to apologize to him at our last meeting. We got done. I asked for additional comments, and he was very gracious and quiet and didn't speak up that the director's report was different, and we adjourned without his director's report. So I apologize to the commissioner and the public, and especially to Director Gruner. So if we can do the director's report now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I just had a few notes at the last meeting. It wasn't my official director's report, but I appreciate you acknowledging that.
It was not your fault. It was me.
So I do have I believe I mentioned this before, I do have a a presentation I'd like to do in regards to my director's report. It's a little bit different than what you've seen in the past. So with that presentation up, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide.
Great.
Can I do? All right, so as you may know, in July is considered the National Park and Recreation Month. It's supported by the National Park and Recreation Association along with the California Parks and Recreation Society. The tagline for California is Parks Make Life Better. And I just want to bring that to everybody's attention since I know it wasn't really brought up in the last meeting. So that was one of my highlights. I wanted just to kind of bring bring that up to the commission and let them know that, you know, July is Parks and Recreation Month. And basically what it is to promote physical, emotional, and mental health and wellness through organized and self-directed fitness, play, and activity. There's actually a whole proclamation with many more, descriptions in regards to what, the Parks program is. And how we recognize the Parks program in the month of July. So just want to bring that to the Commission's attention as July has now passed, but I just kind of want to bring that up. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So I'm going to just highlight some department highlights. Over at the garden centers, we're looking to be expanding some plots by adding 3 additional new full-size plots and 8 above-ground plots. And there's a picture highlighting what the above ground plot looks like. Currently we have a waiting list over 100 people. So we're trying to reduce that. I know space is very limited in those gardens, and we're trying to utilize every space possible to at least get some more people in there so they can enjoy the aspect of gardening within their community. So it is a very, very popular program, and we'll continue to make improvements in that area as well. For the summer programs, July 3rd, we had a great event over here at the OC Fairgrounds with some fireworks and a couple of bands. Had a great turnout. We had about 9,000, a little over 9,000 people in attendance, which is a record number for us. And it was just a great collaboration effort between different departments, with police and fire, and of course the Recreation Department and Public Works. So it's just a great event. Hopefully you guys had a chance to come out and participate and enjoy that event. In addition, we also partnered with the Costa Mesa Foundation, and we had the outdoor concerts, which Madam Chair, you already mentioned. And again, great attendance, great turnout. It's a beautiful location, although perhaps not ideal in regards to being a Fairview Park, but we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. I do want to mention the Pacific Symphony was there about a week and a half ago, which is something very unique. We have the whole orchestra there. I know we have the symphony on the go, which is typically about 3 or 4, musicians that go into a park space area and perform there. But this time we have the whole symphony. And that's something that the Pacific Symphony has been doing for about 20 years now, where they go to various cities and they perform a full orchestra event in a park. So we were fortunate enough to finally have that here in Costa Mesa, which is obviously the home of the Pacific Symphony. And it was just really, really great to see them there along with the turnout. I would say we had probably about 3,000, a little over 3,000 people in attendance. So it's a good start, and we're hopeful to have them back next year. Moving on to the youth camps. So we had about 2,241 kids participate in the Summer Rocks program, the Camp Costa Mesa, as well as the teen camp. Again, another great turnout with kids finally coming back after the pandemic and utilizing the programs and services that the city of Costa Mesa has to offer. Go on to the next slide. As you may know, or as you probably do know, we had the Raiders here for their summer training camp over at Jack Hammett Sports Complex. They concluded their practice yesterday, and they're now moving on to the regular season. With that, we were able to obtain some field maintenance that they provided and really did a great job in refurbishing fields 3 and 4 that we're looking to obviously utilize for the fall sports programs and the spring soccer programs, as well as the flag football programs over there in that area. So yeah, it was just great to have them here. It was a good community event in regards to some of the spectators that were able to bring there. We brought some of the youth programs or the youth sports programs there to witness firsthand how they practice and just kind of be a part of that. So that was really, really neat to see. Moving on, we have the art venture coming up, and I believe you do have a flyer on the dais that you can reference to. It's going to be on September 14th is the actual closing date, and that's when we're going to have the nominations and the selections of who's going to be nominated as winners, so to speak. We have different categories, and we received over 200 applicants. So 167 of those applicants were selected to participate, and they contributed about 267 art pieces that are going to be on display. So it's a really great event. We really want to, bring that out to the community and really want to try to emphasize that program in particular, since it is relatively new. So it's going to be a great event, and again, September 14th is going to be the opening reception from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the award ceremony is going to be on September 21st. So if you have a chance, please come on out and partake in that. Moving on down to the Costa Mesa Tennis Center, as we have a new contractor there now, Top Seed Tennis, and we're working closely with them on resurfacing all 12 courts, of which we're looking to convert 2 of the tennis courts to pickleball courts. So we're going to be adding 8 pickleball courts, and we're hopeful that it's going to happen this fall. Right now, we're just working with the contractor and trying to finalize that agreement and schedule the work. So that's going to be great for not just the tennis center, but also for the community and the city of Costa Mesa. Moving on down to golf. So we're working with the Costa Mesa Country Club to evaluate the golf operations, which is an ongoing process. There's many different capital improvement projects, as well as minor projects, just due to the nature and age of that facility. We are looking to add some safety netting at Jones Street. There has been an issue where some of the golf balls are flying into those apartment complexes, potentially, causing some damage. So we want to address that, and we're working diligently with a contractor to get that addressed, and we'll be moving forward with that. In regards to some of the outreach programs that we've been doing, so last Saturday we went to the Newport Mesa Unified School District Resource Fair, which was over at the IKEA parking lot. They had about 3,000 participants come out for that. It's a great program where they issue out, free school supplies, backpacks, pencils, pens, papers, binders, and different things like that. So really, we want to be a part of that, because a big issue that's been an ongoing issue actually is the lack of swimming resources and the ability to teach kids how to swim and be water safe. So we conducted a survey just to get some feedback as to what is holding people back, particular parents and their kids in regards to swimming or learning how to swim and how to feel comfortable and safe around the water. So we want to try to get that data and then formalize and strategize, methods to provide services and programs, to those families so that they can learn how to swim and enjoy the water that we have. Obviously, being this close to the ocean is kind of an important thing, and also to utilize our pool facilities, not just here within the city, but obviously wherever that they go. Another thing that's been doing some outreach, that the city has been doing some outreach, is the Fairview Development Center. If you're not familiar with that, that's a facility that has been pretty much abandoned. It is currently state-owned, but we do have the ability to, or we have the approval to go ahead and move forward to develop that space. So we're reaching out to the community and getting input in regards to some design plans that have been conceptually designed or provided to us, and trying to get some input and feedback. There is a recreation component to that as well. They're looking at adding about 4 acres in regards to sports fields that we would be managing, and we would be part of it. So we are involved in that development process, so which is great to see, and we're moving forward with that. So last week we had a few outreach events over at Norman Herzog, for example, and just trying to get some public input at this point. Some project updates. The skate park is finalizing conceptual plans based on community input for the commission to review. So about a couple months ago, we had an outreach event over at the skate park trying to get input from the users there, particularly obviously the skateboarders, in regards to what they want to see happen with the skate park, what kind of features they want to have. So we're moving forward with that, and we're looking to bring something to the commission here very soon as we're finalizing the conceptual plans. In regards to Shalimar Park and Ketchum-Libel Park, so they both have been approved to complete design engineer and then contractor, then reach out and do the RFP process with the contractors and get those park projects moving as well. The goal is to hopefully finish them sometime next year in 2025, probably midsummer, I'm guessing. And yeah, that's going to be a great addition, not just to those community areas, but just for the city as well, as it's going to expand our park services. Just a quick update on the Fairview Park master plan. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the committee approve, and we had the consultants there in regards to the master plan and the proposed concepts with the restoration and also just the overall usage of that park space in general. So the committee went ahead and approved the recommendations from the consultant and of course staff as well. And then the next phase of this project is going to be a workshop that's going to be at the Senior Center. That's going to be on Wednesday, September 4th at 6 p.m. So we do want to encourage people to come out, participate in that. We do value and we certainly want to have input and feedback. And if there's any questions that we can certainly answer. So we're looking forward to that. We're also working really, really closely with the Harbor Soaring Society in regards to their fly fields, which is currently situated at Fairview Park. We're looking at some alternative sites. So we have tried a few areas that might be suitable for them to continue their flying program, and so we will continue to work with them and kind of move forward with that, assessing different areas where they could relocate. Also had a chance to meet the Orange County Model of Engineers. It's a great group of individuals over there, managing and coordinating the train services over at Fairview Park. It's quite the operation. I was very impressed with how detailed and meticulous they are in regards to maintaining those tracks and their locomotives and the other equipment pieces that goes along with managing that type of an operation. So it was very, very exciting to see and learn more about that. Go ahead, next slide. I do want to share some operational insights. I'm not really going to go into a whole lot of detail as this is more pertaining to staff development, but I do just want to highlight some of the things that we will be working on in the next coming year. Looking to provide some leadership development programs, team building, professional growth and development for individuals. And that's going to be kicking off in September of this year, on September 14th, as a matter of fact. And we're looking to do a focus group study session and really kind of work with the staff, identifying areas of improvements and areas that we need to kind of focus on and strategize. And we will be working with an outside consultant on that. And then the training is scheduled to begin in October of 2024. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. Again, I'm not going to dive into any type of details in regards to that, but just want to highlight that and bring that to your attention. Also want to mention our Senior Social Services Program. It's a year-round, no-cost mental health service for seniors, particularly dealing with isolation and loneliness. So it's a great service. If you're not familiar with it, please go on our website and take a look. If you feel like you have a senior that is in need of support or assistance emotionally, mentally, it's a great program. We do work with the Orange County Social Services Department. So again, the phone number is down there. If you have somebody, please provide that assistance to them. And then just finally, I want to highlight some of the upcoming programs and events. A Night Under the Stars is going to be Friday, August 9th. And that's at 6:30, and that's the Access Costa Mesa Dance. So it's for those with disabilities that we want to provide some services and programming for. It should be a great event. Again, if you know anybody, please refer them to these great activities and programs that we offer. It's very, beneficial in many, many different ways. And so just want to bring that to everybody's attention. Dive-In movie is also going to be on Friday, August 9th at 7 p.m. The movie is Luca, and it's going to be down at the Aquatic Center in downtown, Recreation Center down there. So again, if you have, kids, just come on out and participate in that. And then we have the Movies in the Park, which is going to be on Saturday, August 17th. And that's going to be starting at 7 p.m. The movie is going to be Goonies. That's an all-time classic from the 80s, so I'm sure everybody remembers that movie. So again, it's a family event. Just come on down, bring a blanket, and set up shop and just enjoy the movie. The Teen Dive-In movie, we're going to have another one. And this is really geared for 7th and 10th graders, and that's going to be Friday, August 23rd. And the movie is going to be Wonka. And it's going to be at the Aquatic Center. And then finally, we're going to have the Symphony on the Go. As I mentioned earlier, that's a smaller quartet of musicians. And that's going to be Saturday, August 24th at Heller Park. And that concludes my presentation, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Glapp.
On the service to seniors for the mental health, what's the age? At what age does it start?
Is it 55? 50 and up.
50? I'm sorry.
I'm yelling. Our membership for their Costa Mesa Senior Center is 50 and up. So those are when our services, now certain services like their transportation program, there's a different requirement, but for our social services, if you're a member of the senior center, you're able to utilize those services.
So they have to become a member to use the services, correct?
Correct, but membership is free at the senior center.
Oh, okay. And then, Director, you talked about the public input on the Fairview Development Center. What's that look like when you ask? What are you asking for from the public regarding that? I wasn't clear. I'm sorry.
Sure. So when we have the outreach programs, we do want to encourage the public to attend and be present and partake in the outreach program, where we can get some input from the residents in regards to their thoughts about the layout and the design of it. So it's important that we get some input from the residents.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Wright.
Hello. I like the slide format a lot more
Excellent. All right.
than the PDF. Thanks. I have two questions about the park projects. So I'm really glad Ketchum and Shalimar got approved for RFP. Do we have an estimate of when, do we have a goal of when those would be completed?
Yeah, I'm going to have Rob
Director
answer that
Ryan.
question. Yeah.
Ideally, those would be completed by summer of next year or late summer, early fall, hopefully, if everything lines up.
That's like construction and everything?
Yeah, we're working on the construction documents and putting that project to bid. That'll be advertised.
That's great.
Yeah.
That feels fast.
It does, yeah, it does. It's coming.
My next question is, could you speak to, I'm looking at our CIP status table chart from April. So it says the skate park expansion design was timed for fall 2024, and then the Brentwood Park design segment was for summer 2024. Could you speak to why we maybe did the skate park community input first? And the underlying question is like, could you give us a status update on Brentwood Park as well?
So we're nearing some completion of the design for the skate park, and I think that's going to be coming before the commission shortly. As far as Brentwood Park, we're starting to initiate the design process for Brentwood Park now. So we're on schedule on both of those projects.
Awesome. How long do you think until we can put it out to the community for Brentwood?
That depends on the length of the design and the amount of input we get. This will be a little bit of a shorter time frame than the complete kind of reconstruction of the other two parks. I'm hoping that we'll have something ready for presentation maybe fall maybe early winter. It'd be nice to get that design process done and working on the RFP process.
Awesome.
And we'll have a broader update. We'll be updating that April PDF that we're provided. That'll be provided next month. So
Great.
get a little bit more detail on that.
And how are the T-Winkle projects looking? Are those the construction, is that gonna start soon? The lake repairs?
So the lake repairs, all bids were rejected.
Yeah, I heard about
It's being put out to bid. We did redefine the scope of work. We've received that scope of work back from our design team. And our engineering team is in the process of getting that ready to re-advertise to see how that goes. So that should be re-advertised sometime either late this month or early September.
Are you still hoping for a fall construction timeline or probably winter?
With the rejection of the bids and the re-advertising, that'll be pushed back to probably early spring of next year, maybe late winter, depending on the
Oh,
bidding
wow.
process.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Ledger, do you have some questions? So a couple things. One is, it so warms my heart, as my fellow commissioners know, that we're looking at 8 pickleballs courts that'll be at an area that has lights and can really be bike rid to. So thank you to everybody who started. And really, I don't think it was just me. I think there was a lot of loud noise about, hey, let's do that. The other one is if I could be shared, I don't know if anybody else is interested, in the swing, you were doing swim survey, which we know that's a big challenge in our community, especially with the marginalized and poorer parts of our community. They do not have access to swimming, and we know that really impacts not just their safety, but their future to participate in a lot of activities in our community. So that would be interesting. As just on the side is, OCC has this beautiful aquatic swim area, so we want to make sure to see what kind of community resources we can go forward with. And then I wanted to return a little bit to Brentwood, and I know normally there's, at what stage with Brentwood, because we've had some very active families who've been doing lots of research, and I know they've been sharing. On Brentwood, are you going to go and do, kind of some meetings and to see what they want, or what is the staff proposing as far as the process goes? Because I think, and I don't want to speak, we have a couple people here, I think they were thinking there would be outreach to get a consensus on what types of play, design, functionality, things, because that park's been promised for so long. There's been a lot of input in there. So did I hear it wrong that you're going to do a proposal first, or you're going to, no? Okay, so if you can clarify that would be great.
Yes, thank you. So we've received a lot of input already from members of that community. And so there'll be a little bit of a broader outreach to make sure that we're capturing everyone. I know we heard some concerns at one of our meetings regarding the type of park that was being built, and there's some kind of misunderstanding about what the project really entails. So there will be a broader outreach before, and then we'll start working on that design.
And I know that signage you all did for the 2 parks was great. You put up signs and QR codes and everything so that those who use the park have access to the dates. So I would assume that positive, sort of trial and error, that was really the trial was great. I think you got a lot more input, and also I know that the commissioners were inputting and making sure flyers went out to, especially around Shalimar. So I just want to make sure, because this has been a long time coming, and is some misinformation about what the park, what the design of the park is, and it's really about playground updates and making sure the playground has proper drainage, and to make it more like a lot of the other parks in the area. We have a lot of active play for both older kids, younger kids, and then toddlers. So, okay, I just want to clarify that and go on the record. So thank you, because that would be great as far as that goes. But other than that, I don't really have any other questions for the director's report. Do we have any public comments? Nope. All right. I think we go ahead and move it. It's just a receive and file. Old business, we have the open space master plan, which is been going on for a very long time. So I look forward to hearing the report from the staff. Thank you.
Yes, it has been going on for quite some time, almost 10 years. And it's one of those situations where it started off with every good intention. And unfortunately, as you know, especially with COVID hitting and just really changing a lot of the dynamics in regards to how people utilize parks and recreational facilities and amenities, it's come to a point where it's simply outdated. And the council did recognize that at the June 24th meeting, and made the motion to go ahead and receive and file. There was a very strong consensus that with the current method of us and the amount of projects that we currently have on the table, such as Ketchum and Leibold and Shalimar Park, Brentwood Park, and all these other projects that are currently ongoing, the council felt like, hey, we have enough going on right now, number one, and number two, that this is kind of working for us in regards to addressing some of the concerns of the community when it comes to parks and our facilities. So, so basically, we're just wanting the commission to receive and file this report, acknowledging some of the accomplishments. And I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Monique, and she can go ahead and do the presentation of this report.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I get to have the fun task of walking you through this process. It's been, like Director Gruner has said, a very long process. I came on board in 2021, so I wasn't here for a good chunk of when this originally started, but I've done a lot of research since then. So I'm going to do my best to give you guys a brief update of what's taken place to date. So starting with the background of how this whole update became to fruition. In 2015, City Council approved a PSA with RJM to update our 2003 master plan. And this actually started, the RFP process for this PSA started in 2014, and it started with our Public Works Department. And so there was a transition during this time where a lot of parks and recreation and administrative changes in the departments and who did what were changing. So it started in Public Works and eventually made its way to our department. In 2017, a draft final plan was presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they essentially approved it to move on to council. On February 13th, 2018, council had a study session with a final draft. They had a good conversation, and I should say the conversation did center around a lot around sports fields. This initiative of this master plan was very sports field heavy at the time. That's just what the community was more outspoken with at the time. So I could say that, as times change, back then, this is what was emphasized at that time. In 2007, so let me backtrack. After the study session with council, there were some administrative changes in the city. They chose to defer that adoption of a master plan. So the draft that they reviewed in the study session was final. RJM completed their full scope of work according to their contract. We just never got around to adoption with council due to administrative changes, and then eventually COVID hit. So in 2021, we picked it back up and we said, hey, okay, let's take this 2018 final draft and see if we can bring it a little bit more up to date with some amendments. So we brought a contract, a PSA, back to council. They approved it with a scope of work that included project familiarization, demographic update, additional community outreach, which didn't include as much outreach as the initial plan, but did include some additional outreach, some stakeholder interviews, some phone surveys, and an additional service area analysis, just to see if any of the maps had changed since the prior final draft. So a background on what a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan aims to do. And I keep adding in the title Parks, Recreation, and Open Space because a lot of people just refer to it as Open Space Master Plan, but it was a comprehensive draft of everything related to parks. That includes maintenance, very thorough, recreation facilities, recreation programs, and open spaces. So it was very thorough, and they were looking to examine the whole, encompassing the whole city with what we can do through parks and recreation. So it says, provide a thorough community-based assessment of the current and future needs of parks and recreation facilities, analyze recreation program needs, and develop some recommendations for the future to be implemented over time. So as we come to have the draft in front of us, we updated the draft, and what we get is the 2003 draft master plan. Now, I'm going to, before we get into some key findings and recommendations, I would say updating a 2018 draft with 2021, 2022, and now 2023 numbers was extremely difficult to do when you didn't have a full scope of the same similar types of things that were done in 2018. And that includes financial analysis, CIP analysis, maintenance reviews. None of that was included in the 2021 scope. And so you might be finding yourself reading the 2023 draft saying some of these narratives don't quite match the numbers because they could only do so much with a limited scope. So, but I did want to go over some key findings and recommendations. So, like I mentioned, the 2023 draft is based on the inventory analysis, demand analysis, and some community input. Granted, the community input is we get more community input reflecting of the 2018 community input than of 2021-22 community input. There was much more stakeholder interviews, much more, there was workshops included in 2018 versus there was no workshops included in the year of 2022. So you just see the difference of it reflects more community input from 2018, which, as we all know, our community has transitioned. Everything's a little bit different. Even coming out of COVID, there's different needs there. So just want to leave that in the back of your heads when we go through this. So it does combine both 2018 and 2020, I would say 2021, but 2022 drafts from 2023. So the limitations of this draft currently that's we have in front of us, it doesn't account for any current projects and programs already underway or completed. You heard some of them during the director's report, these wonderful CIP projects that we got grant funding for, which is an incredible, everybody says an incredible problem to have to spend this money and have all these projects. Well, you can't necessarily wait to have this guiding tool of a master plan to determine what projects to do. So we got this grant money and we have these projects underway. This draft also does not reflect updated city goals and objectives. There wasn't so much as a focus on sustainability or even active transportation. We're a huge active transportation city now. How do you bike and walk friendly to the places in your neighborhood, in your community? And that wasn't so much as reflected in these prior drafts. And then also park access, equitability. We know we have park deficient areas and that we're trying to resolve. We know that council created a park acquisition fund this last year. And so all those types of things, these drafts don't really reflect those current goals and objectives. The community's needs and funding priorities have evolved through expanded outreach and engagement, where we've hired the city's first ever, outreach and engagement manager. The city has come a long way in terms of what outreach and engagement looks like, just with the boom of social media and, when we talk about QR codes and, we do so much more as a city and we continue to grow every day. And then also evolving emerging trends. So we all know that what was popular last year is not popular today. What was popular 5 years ago is definitely not popular today. And along with the needs and the evolving needs of the community and what they want, we know that trends change. And so these trends aren't, what's displayed in this draft doesn't always represent the current trends that are happening today. I could say, just trends with the outreach and engagement that we have done through through our park projects, having them be bilingual. That has been a huge improvement, and we see much more outreach and engagement, and you hear from a whole different side of the community as to what they want in their neighborhoods and their communities. So, just these were some of the limitations of the draft. These drafts do mention many, many, many recommendations, and that includes facility recommendations and what we should do, partnership recommendations, program recommendations, where parks should be, what parks should be, what should be in the parks. I mean, it goes through a plethora of items. And while great, we wanted to highlight a lot of the stuff in this draft we have accomplished already. So these next 2 slides is not even a tenth of what we've accomplished, but I wanted to highlight that we have worked towards a goal without this being a final plan, adopted plan. So, just some of the things. The first slide, it encompasses a lot of park improvements that we've done over the years. And I think, with Rob heading up the park maintenance side of things, they've really done a good job of putting things on schedules and playground replacements and fixing things when they need to be fixed, replace shelters, and these are all maintenance techniques that, he's employed in their department, in their division. So that way, when these master plans are undergoing this process, you don't have a consultant coming to us and saying, you have this picnic shelter that's deteriorating and you guys need to put this on a schedule for 5 years, where, well, we already have those kind of schedules in place. And so it's great that we have that because we're already continuously improving a lot of our parks. And then a lot of even our facilities. We talked about tennis center, right? Our lighting's getting upgraded. We're getting our courts resurfaced. This is all mentioned in this draft. And so, we come to see this draft is becoming obsolete just because we've already been accomplishing a lot of these things. Our senior center has gotten improvements. It references the neighborhood community center, which is no longer the neighborhood community center, which is in fact torn down. We now have the Norman Herzog Center. So that whole campus was renovated. And that was a lot of work to clarify and say, hey, this is now that, and the library's over here, and this park got renovated. So, just a lot of obsolete information and stuff that we're really actually proud that we've done on our own already. As Director Gruner has mentioned, the Fairview Developmental Center, we have the specific plan and process to come up with ideas, and it mentions, what kind of development can go on there, and that's already in process. And then we have a master plan, a cultural arts master plan, completed in 2021, and then we have all these initiatives along with a new arts commission that is working on some of these things. So it recommends adaptive programming that the city didn't used to have special needs programming, and that the city needed to really work on it. Without even reading this draft, when I came on board, we started that without it, and I was like, hey, look, we already did that. And, because some of these things are kind of common sense when you come into the Parks and Recreation field. And also coming out of COVID, we expanded recreation classes. We continue to look for partnerships all the time. So we're really growing, I think, as a department, as a city, in multiple aspects of just open space, parks, recreation. We're really coming a long way. And I think that's with the help of all the outreach and engagement now that we're doing. And, commissioners and the community actually listening and speaking up and really getting out there and getting to know what this community wants. It does mention all of these things, and so it's nice to say that these current major projects and initiatives are actually happening. Shalimar, Ketchum, those are, our grant-funded projects, our skate park expansion, but not to mention all of our master plans. The Fairview Park Master Plan is a big item to undertake for the 208-acre park that has a multitude of various aspects and ecological and biological and nature preserves associated with it that
a plan of this size should incorporate these other plans into it. So there's no mention of our Fairview Park Master Plan, which is ongoing, a pedestrian master plan, or arts and culture master plan, and also, which got approved this year, a facility needs assessment, where, you know, Public Works, along with our department, will, you know, evaluate parks and facilities. And, you know, I know that we talked about restrooms and bathrooms. So all of this will be evaluated. And those kinds of documents should be incorporated into these bigger documents. So with that being said, we have some recommendations for this draft for you to receive and file the report. Acknowledge the progress that we made on some of these bigger projects and the ones that are in the works, and recommend initiating a new master plan once some of these bigger projects have been completed, and ensure the integration of the master plans that I had just mentioned, and ensure it's a comprehensive approach. That doesn't mean that they always have to include everything. Maybe we don't have to include a huge section on maintenance techniques because we have an awesome maintenance services manager who already takes care of a lot of things. The trends in parks, recreation, and open space, I could say that I've worked with the consultant from RJM. His name is Zachary. He really, RJM is very well known in this space and has done these kind of plans over and over again. And the trend with these plans is that they're now more geared and specific to actual features or items, whether that's, you know, playgrounds and what people want out of playgrounds, or specifically just open space, or your community centers. So they gear them so they're not such large, hard to digest documents. They're more geared to be smaller and more specific, so that way you don't lose out on opportunities to apply for grants. They don't become obsolete. You know, you can implement them more effectively and efficiently and immediately. So that's our recommendation for today. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them, but with that being said.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's any public comments on the presentation and the recommendations. We'll start, yep, I'm going to turn the mics on for you in here. Come on up to the mics.
Hello, good evening. My name's Amy Manzinger, and good evening, Commissioner or Chair Parker and Director Gruner. You're now I guess the third director I've been in front of, so welcome. I read the master plan. I read the 2016 one, and this thing is a beast, so 160 pages. My first question is, obviously this is a draft, so I commend, you know, putting this together and updating it. There's a lot of edits, that inconsistencies or corrections. So who should I send that to?
This is your time to talk.
Oh.
When you're done, then the director and the staff will follow up with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to cut in on your 3 minutes by having them go back and forth. So why don't you answer, you know, your input and whatever questions you have.
Okay. Well, I just had a question about how can I access the community needs assessment that you did for the master plan?
The director will get back in touch. We're trying to streamline the community comments are more your input and your questions, and that way we're not taking time to answer the questions. And they may not know the question right now,
Okay.
and so they'll get back to you. Yeah,
Okay.
make sure he has your information.
Okay. And then I just had one more. Let's see. Oh, so should I just send all the questions to with regard to the master plan?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you send it to Director Gruner?
Okay.
And then if you want to CC me as your parks local director person, that way I can make sure. And then, yeah, she has the card.
Okay. Awesome. I'll do that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and any concerns you want us to hear, this is the time to address us so that we can hear with your voice.
Okay, so it all references like the 2016 budget, so that's all going to be updated, correct? Like all the budget and staffing is from the 2016 master plan. It doesn't have any of the current, correct?
So So that, those kind of questions that's one of the things they were just talking about. So the director, we know there's going to be a lot of this like on different playing fields. So because of how disruptive this process has been
Okay,
since 2016.
okay. So this is,
So my recommendation is any members of the public, whether you're in the trainer or not, if you have lots of questions about the master plan as you've been seeing it and why things aren't lining up, is to send an email to the director
Okay.
of your concerns and questions.
Okay.
And he'll make sure, I'm sure he'll bring it up of these questions, either share it by email or bring it up at his next director's report. So you know it was intake, and we'll be in touch with you
okay,
to make sure that everyone knows what the questions are and what the answers would be.
okay. And what's the timeline for the open, like, when's the final, is that?
Well, so if I can just explain. So, I mean, with this report, it's basically a receive and file. We're basically closing out the master plan.
Okay.
It's not something that we're going to be utilizing because it is simply outdated, but I'd be happy to meet with you and we can have a discussion in regards to any of your questions, and I can certainly answer those, directly to you.
Okay,
But the master plan is basically, it's a receive and file, and it's going to be basically shelved. So we're not going to be necessarily utilizing it with the intent as that's going to be, looking at different projects that we're going to be working on. Again, we have so many different other projects already in the pipeline.
Okay.
That we're going to be focused on those, and with the methodology that we're using currently, we're going to continue with that pattern. If there is a need down the line after those projects are complete to basically develop a new master plan, then we will go ahead and approach the council and request the funding to develop a new master plan.
okay. I think I understand.
I would recommend follow up with
Okay,
our
all
director.
right, all right, thank you.
It's very confusing, I admit. Yes, next.
Good evening, Commissioners. So it says, start a new master plan process after the completion of the current significant projects. So I'm guessing the new master plan sometime in 2025 would be initiated, and I'm getting this. So whenever it is initiated, though, I would ask, and I feel confident you will, but this commission be actively involved in that process, helping to develop the scope, maybe getting interim reports on it, working with the consultant, working with staff. In my opinion, all too often, staff and consultants do the work, which typically you expect, but then they report out to committees or commissions, and it's pretty much of a done deal. I much prefer committees and commissions to be involved in the process, actively involved in the process as it's going on. And I trust Director Gruner will help do that. I know over the past 8 years or 6 years, whenever this started, there's been a number of directors in the Parks Department, so things have been, convoluted at the best. And one reason, you're receiving and file versus implementing this master plan. But I would also hope that there's a skeleton here, there's some bones here in what this 2023 master plan, even though it's receive and file, hopefully some of that information can be utilized in the new master plan that will start sometime in the future. I briefly looked at it, and there seemed like a lot of good work that was done over the past number of years in that 2023 master plan, and hopefully a lot of that could be certainly updated, but some of that hopefully could be utilized in the new one. So I guess that's my thing, is I would really hope that this commission, representing the people and reporting into the council, be actively involved in this new master plan. Maybe study sessions, maybe some separate study sessions during the performance of this master plan, so you guys can actively input into that effort versus, like I said, just receiving a draft and making comments after the fact, but actively being involved in it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have another public comment in the chamber.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, first of all, I think having commissioner questions before the public comment would have been beneficial for us public commenters. And then secondly, just this whole master plan process, I think is quite strange, I think, to say the least, the amount of time it's taken. I think, and then this new master plan that will happen after we finish our projects, but then it might have to happen after Fairview Developmental Center, and then after this, and after this, and after, and you have to question at some point, when do you have to begin a plan? And that's also why I'm questioning why this plan is being received and filed as well. Because at some point, you're gonna have to start. Right? We have an open space element, for example, that was adopted in 2015. Are we saying that that's also now out of date? Should we be updating that too? Probably is, but we will never have a document that is in date, is really my point. We have multiple plans, multiple elements in our general plan that, you know, at some point we're just going to have to say, this is what we have, these are the policies that are in here, and let's use it. So what I really hope to hear, and that I don't think I have heard, is that this plan, whether adopted or not, we're going to be taking something from it. We're going to take any policies, any recommendations, any proposed projects that have been proposed in this draft plan, or even in the 2003 adopted plan that still haven't come through. There's a lot of projects that have been done, and I applaud the Public Works Department and the Parks Department for having completed all of these projects, but there's also a lot of projects that have not been done in the 21 years since our last open space master plan. So I just really hope that this wasn't just a sunk cost, that we're not just going to receive and file and then, you know, file it away to never look at it again, to collect dust, but that we're actually going to take some things from this that we spent a lot of money for and actually put them into good use. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no more comments here in the chamber. Any online?
There are currently no members online.
Thank you. So at this time, what I'm going to do is ask our commissioners if they have questions or comments, and I'll start with Commissioner Wright.
Yes, I do. Hi. Thank you. I also read the whole thing. Oh my goodness. It's a lot. Yeah, some things that also stood out to me is how exciting it is that we're already working on so many things that were pointed out, and it's kind of cool to see the timeless aspect of collecting data from your community. Is that like 6 years ago, even the sports complex improvements that we're seeing this year in the CIPs, I think speaks to that. Another thing that stood out to me is that when the consultants were looking at the state of our parks and our facilities, we got the top ranking. We got mode 1, which apparently means everything's really good and above standards compared to other cities anyways. So I thought that was awesome. I really just have like some notes, but before I get into them, I was at the council meeting where basically they approved the budget and this got pulled from the budget. So there was $350K on there to redo this or reinvest. And my understanding of their intention was that they wanted us to get a clearer scope of work of what would that $350K like achieve, what part of what we currently have would we want to keep, and what would we want to add on. And the assumption was, do we really need to put another $350K into this? And that they didn't have a clear idea of what we even have to work with to start. I've only been on this commission for 2 years, and the sentiment was also like, we would love to see the draft, but the draft just never got shared with us. So I agree. I think I was under the assumption that we weren't going to shelve it, that maybe council was debating on going through it with a fine-tooth comb, deciding with staff what is still relevant versus not, and then coming up with a new budget and a new timeline of when we would continue working on this. That was my read of that council meeting. If they decide to just pause it until our projects are done, that's obviously their job and their purview. But when I was reading the draft, I was going off of that more like active working, that this would remain maybe an active working draft, or that the goal would be to get a better price point, like a lower price point, to continue improving it and keep it in the works. So that's just my disclaimer of what I understood from them and what I was reading this draft. That was the lens I was reading this draft through. So since I said that, now I'll just share. So a lot of the components I think are extremely relevant, even though maybe not as big of importance as we'd want it to be. So some things that stood out to me are, we've talked a lot recently about like a 10-minute walk to a park. This draft already includes a 15-minute walk to a park as a goal, and has an assessment of our maps and if it are, access to parks and if it reaches that. So it was interesting because I felt like that's a more newer trend in city design that we've been discussing, and that was already in there. Although it doesn't include or overlap with our pedestrian master plan, which is beautiful, and we have been focusing more on like multimodal access to parks. There was a lot of like different rankings for the categories of parks. How do people already typically get there? And there was even mentions that the city has already explored implementations for an east-west bicycle connection determined by the flood control maintenance roads. So I was actually going to ask, I don't even know what those are, but there was a whole map of like suggested pathways that could be converted into lower class like travel paths to parks. Really great, right? So maybe it's more like we expand on that because now that's a bigger priority, but it's already in there. And I think that reflects on the current council's priorities. I would love to see that maybe get talked about more. Or can we do something, maybe pull it out and do something with it, just to know that it's there. I want to speak that into the public record because I don't think anyone else is going to read a 160-page document like me. And that's totally fine. They have other hobbies. Okay, something else I thought was so interesting is there was something in there called the Tapestry Life Mode groups. It was like adding personas to the types of people that live in different neighborhoods. By income, by age, and then how they use like our recreational spaces and programs. Very fascinating. And I don't see that drastically changing either, because it really has to do with like zoning and what types of people can afford to live in certain types of housing, which also isn't going to change drastically unless it's related to Measure K. So that was really cool. And I could see that staying and being really valuable. I don't know if that's like a standardized persona that's used across cities, but I definitely looked up where I live and it was very on point. So I guess I'm just a stereotypical renter millennial. I've been kind of wondering, how do we assess our facilities and our recreation needs? We've talked about that a lot. That's also, I'm a parks commissioner. A lot of people have no idea what that means, but they know that they can talk to me about their playgrounds. So I would say that's one of the most like frequent requests or complaints that I get. And so it's really cool to see how you guys have a matrix for it and how you're thinking about it and ranking things. I think the more that we could make that process like transparent or accessible to people, and even advertising that we are inviting of those types of requests at our parks, I'd love to see that get added in the signage section for our master plan in the future. Like, how can we make that process more inviting, more accessible? In fact, one of the survey responses to how can we improve our services to community residents. The top request was communication, outreach, and advertising, and being responsive to feedback. I think we're really good at that when they come to like our meetings in the field, or they know someone like us, or they take the time to write an email. But I worry about all the normal people who don't care really about what the government is doing, but they love their park and they use their park all the time. So I feel like a sign that's already there, where they could see, hey, email this catch-all contact email about facility requests, or, we've talked about community input, future community input meetings as well. That was something that stood out to me as missing. That's a really small thing though, and I feel like I'm always talking about community input. Really the only big thing that I was surprised was missing was like, what is there's so many awesome ideas about programming and how to reach new people and more people, and their needs as far as different types of hobbies and leisure. And it was swimming, right? Like swimming was a big one, so specific. But I felt like the digital component was really missing. Like, if at the end of the day we do all these amazing things as a city and we're constantly working to like better ourselves, which I really, and we're also the best, mode 1, I feel like none of it really matters if we're not getting it across digitally, because that just is the main communication channel of almost all the generations now. And so the only section that digital communications was mentioned in was in volunteer opportunities and how we were going to collaborate with like nonprofits and stuff. And it was pretty in-depth, talking about digital marketing or emails or whatever. But I was almost like, this could apply to every section we just went over. Like, as we have more parks, more programs, are trying to focus on teens more, all these things, I think it should all be paired with a digital plan. And then hopefully that would pave the way for like a funding to be also attached to some type of digital plan. So that was like the only thing that I thought, oh my gosh, this is missing. This feels like a gap. And the other thing that I just want to mention too is that so I guess, yeah, this is my last thing. The final thing I wanted to mention, and I'm happy to summarize this and just send this all to council too, since they will ultimately make the decision on what we do with this plan. But when we had that really awesome presentation on all the rec programs and the staff came in, I felt like really clearly the need was just for more funding, or like more support as far as supporting larger capacity. So it seems like all of our rec programs are extremely successful, book up, are the most affordable, the most accessible, like are just the best in the entire city. And I would really like to see maybe an intention to accommodate for like a growth rate on our programming. So let's assume post-COVID, things are just gonna keep getting better and bigger because we won't have a pandemic. And I wanna make sure, I don't want to forget that, like, when we asked our own staff, hey, what's the one thing you would want to make your program better? They basically all said, if we just had more space or more money to hire more people, we would have a bigger program and everybody would keep loving it. So this seems like the moment to possibly insinuate working in a growth rate for those programs. So yeah, this got me really excited for the future, and also realizing we are living in the future that 2016 foresaw. We are in it, and we're pretty on point. So great job. I'm really excited we got to see this. My hope is that we continue working on it and that we don't have to spend another $350K, but also I'm only one person. So thanks so much, and I'll hand it back to you.
All right. So I'm going to go to my right and ask Commissioner Glab if you have questions and comments.
No questions.
And Commissioner Ledger.
Yeah, so when it says that the new master plan is going to be adaptable to the community's evolving needs and priorities, how often are you going to be looking into the community's needs and priorities?
So when that process takes place, whenever council authorizes a new agreement or a contract or to continue this process, usually a consultant looks the first time about what their needs and priorities are. You look at what the council, they'll interview multiple. In the first round of this draft master plan, the commission got interviewed. Multiple council members participated in the interview process, and then they did a lot of stakeholder interviews in the communities. But ultimately, they can't keep it open because they do have to draft something. So, but it is supposed to be a continuously updated document. It's just that there was so many extenuating circumstances that happened between this one and then updating us that it's just the obsolete part of it, and that's why the financial numbers don't make sense, and that wasn't included in the updated scope. More scope means more dollars, so there's only so much you can do without starting over again. But the hope would be that they get an exhaustive list of community input and what their needs are and the priorities. If you think about what this community wanted a year ago versus 2 years ago versus 5 years ago, they continue to be different coming out of, obviously, the pandemic. Everybody's mental health, recreation outdoors, their outlook on it definitely changed. We saw that change in that shift in dynamics. That's evolving, but initially it would have to be all put into a plan, and then council can decide how often that update would take place.
Madam Chair, if I can just add to that a little bit.
Yes, please.
So when I referenced that we were going to be shelving, I mean, that's not in regards to we're going to put on a shelf and never look at it again. We are going to utilize it as a reference, so we can refer to it and see if we are continuing on the projected goals that are outlined in that particular master plan. But as Monique has mentioned, the overall perception and needs of parks, recreation, and community services has certainly changed. For one example is, besides the technology aspect of it, but another thing, for example, pickleball is not even mentioned in this report at all, and that's the fastest growing sport in the country. So it's just little things like that we need to be aware of, and Public Works and our department will be working closely together to formulate that strategic plan in regards to assessing the parks, also assessing our facilities in conjunction with the current projects already happening. So that is the short-term goal and plan. And then once that is kind of finalized, then we will reassess what the need for either updating it, a master plan, or really just providing entirely new master plan with the current changes, as the demand and the need of the community is constantly changing.
So, now I'll start my comments. One of the things that was horrifying to us as a community was on the original master plan was to mow down Fairview Park and put sports parks up. There was this big push to have organized sports fields, and the only place, and that began a huge shift in our community as to say, is this really what we want? It changed everything. It changed our council, it changed our staff, it changed everything. So also the other thing I saw is the original master plan was trying to solve and decide so many things that are ongoing changes. To me, they tried to come up with kind of top priorities, but if you went into different parts of our community, they had different priorities. Then they tried to build a budget that was so unrealistic because it was coming out of 2008, it was coming into whole new priorities, new council, size of council changed. If you think about everything else, more representation within neighborhoods, it became a hugely unyielding document that it didn't get shelved, but the other priorities was just trying to exist in COVID, trying to figure out how to serve the community. What I see happening is we sort of have all of these planning going on with priorities based on the budget of the council. I always say, if you want to know an organizational's priorities and their plans, you have to look at where they spend the money, where they plan to spend the money, which is our plans are, CIP. And I know the CIP tries to go out 5 years, but even if you look 5 years, one of the things I know when I came on this council, I said, oh my God, so many of our parks have so many needs of playground equipment, of drainage, of drinking fountains. And the director at the time said, good luck, we have no money. Well, we solved that. We talked to some of our legislators and some of our past leaders, and boom, we have the money. So then it became shifted around. What I look at this really as, for example, the Transportation Master Plan, there was no idea how important bikeability would be. No idea how important parks are now. We have this dog mania going on since COVID. We have so many people with dogs. Now we have issues with dogs off leash. But now we have issues of compounding. Do we need to turn into some of these fenced-in areas in our community parks, our little neighborhood parks that we can have safe places for the dogs to run in? None of that was mentioned. My lovely pickleball was not mentioned. So what I'm hoping we do, and it's up to the council to make a decision, that's going to be their priority, is we take all of these planning going from Fairview to active transportation to, to all these layers that we have these committees and these citizens working on, and that when then they're already starting to work. I already just saw Wilson. If you think about, there was such a dangerous crossing, and that was part of active transportation, is there's a bus line there, people were walking, and people were almost being killed across Wilson over by Wilson Park. So that became a priority that was never listed in this master plan. But I also believe you need a plan to know where you're going to understand the priorities. But I really think that, as I've been hearing, is to do smaller, shorter windows of just, we know our parks have aging playground equipment. We know that. So that is an obvious master plan part, but it's really an ongoing plan. We know we need to be now, the goal is 15 minutes to walk to a safe park safely. We know there's more heightened awareness of making sure we safely go to the schools. I know in my neighborhood, they're going to do a road diet and a parking diet, and they had an outreach plan. Some people are not happy, but it'll be safer. Also, it'll get them to the park around the corner at Jordan. So I'm happy to read the draft. It's just, there's so many things. Being a musician, it's like a dissonant symphony. Nothing is lining up. The notes don't make sense, but you're trying to get through the symphony to the end, knowing that there's people playing out of tune. They're also, the way the notes are not really working together. So I would like to urge all of us, if we want some idea to do some future planning, to contact our city council so that they can decide it's a priority and then figure out what kind of plan do we need. To put together a $350,000 report with all these other layers going in, it may not be realistic, but also to do a more comprehensive approach and to realize that every 3 to 5 years, our community is going to change of what their needs are. I'm hoping we get much more younger families that come in. So I'm hoping that we have more workforce housing so that we then will have needs that right now we have an aging community that doesn't need parks necessarily unless it's with our grandchildren or great-grands and nieces and nephews. But I'm hoping we get a much more variety in our demographics to then we need a different master plan. So, and I appreciate everyone here, and I really want everyone in the chamber or that's online to please write an email to our director of what questions you have, what confusion you have, what are the plans, what are we doing? But right now we're in the middle of an amazing growth period because of all the grants we got, and that sort of was going to shove any master plan aside anyway because there's time frames on those and be able to spend the money. But we know now there's a lot more to do, but it's changed from even just 4 years ago. And we get more pickleball courts, which wasn't even mentioned. And with that, I'm just going to go back to my home panel. That's sort of my comments. And so this really is not even, we don't even need to vote on receiving and file. We're just going to be part of the record of parks. And I do appreciate the citizen here that asked to make sure the PACS Commission is absolutely involved in anything that the City Council decides they want to plan on. I think we've been way more involved the last 2 or 3 years in particular than I think any PACS commission. We also have some wonderful PACS commission members, all of you here, and the ones who are ill or traveling or wherever. They've been very, very active. So I just want to thank you. With that, I see we have no new business. Do we have any additional commissioner, member, or staff comments before I call for an adjournment? Shall I see none? None in the chamber? Yes, I want to make sure I acknowledge the director. I don't want to ask for adjournment till he's okay.
No, I do just want to point out one more item here, and it's our calendar of events that we put together. I know that has been a request for a very long time, so our staff did a great job in working with the city manager's office and really putting down all the different events that we do throughout the year. And we will make this public very, very soon, but we did want to share that with the commission tonight and get that out to you guys.
I know this was one of my requests, that I have a pretty busy schedule with some other roles I serve. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, so I can make sure that I get these on my calendar. Selfishly, thank you. Anything else, Director? I want to make sure.
No, that's it.
Okay, anything else? All right, do I have a motion for adjournment? You just go ahead and say, or go ahead, whoever wants.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all.